I never imagined that one dance would expose a secret that had been buried for 20 years. My name is Gabriel Torres, and I'm just a janitor trying to survive in Miami's cruelest world, the world of the ultra-rich. That night, at the Sterling Mansion's charity gala, I made a decision that would change everything. When I offered my hand to Victoria Sterling, the blind daughter of Miami's most powerful CEO, I thought I was just helping a lonely girl. I had no idea that our dance would unravel a family secret so shocking that it would bring the entire ballroom to its knees. What her father revealed in front of hundreds of witnesses. That truth destroyed everything we thought we knew about our lives. My hands were rough from years of scrubbing floors, pushing mops, and cleaning up after people who never bothered to learn my name. At 42 years old, I had accepted my place in this world. I was Gabriel Torres, single father, janitor at Sterling Global Industries, and a man who had learned to be invisible. That's what people like me do in places like Miami. We fade into the background while the rich shine like diamonds under crystal chandeliers. The night of the Sterling Charity Gala, I wasn't supposed to be seen. I was there to work, to keep the marble bathrooms spotless, to ensure that no champagne glass left a ring on the imported Italian tables, to be a ghost in a room full of gods. The ballroom was magnificent, dripping with wealth that could feed entire neighborhoods. Women wore gowns worth more than my yearly salary, men laughed with the confidence that only unlimited money can buy, and everywhere I looked, there was excess, beauty, and a world I would never truly belong to. But I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about my daughter, Isabella, my 10-year-old princess who was home with a neighbor, probably doing her homework at our small kitchen table. Isabella was my everything, my reason for waking up at 5 in the morning, my motivation to swallow my pride and clean toilets for people who looked through me like I was made of air. Her mother, my beautiful Maria, had died 5 years ago, leaving me alone to raise our daughter in a city that showed no mercy to people like us. As I moved through the shadows of the ballroom, checking that everything was perfect, my eyes caught something that made my heart clench. Near the tall windows overlooking Biscayne Bay, standing completely alone, was a young woman in a pale blue gown that seemed to shimmer like moonlight on water. She was beautiful, with dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders, but there was something different about her. She stood perfectly still, her head tilted slightly as if listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. Her fingers traced the edge of a champagne glass nervously, and even from across the room, I could see the tension in her shoulders. Victoria Sterling. I knew who she was. Everyone who worked at Sterling Global knew the boss's daughter. She was 23 years old and had been blind since birth. The other janitors talked about her sometimes, always with a mixture of pity and curiosity. They said she rarely came to these events, that her father kept her hidden away like a shameful secret. But tonight she was here and she was completely, devastatingly alone. The music swelled, violins crying out a beautiful melody that filled every corner of that magnificent room. Couples began moving onto the dance floor, their movements practiced and elegant, a choreography of wealth and privilege. I watched as men in expensive tuxedos spun their partners, as women laughed with their heads thrown back, as the entire room seemed to pulse with life and celebration. Everyone was dancing, everyone except Victoria. She took a small step forward, her white cane tapping gently against the polished floor. My breath caught in my throat as I realized what she was trying to do. She wanted to dance. She wanted to be part of this world, to feel the music in her body, to experience what everyone else took for granted. But her hands trembled, and I could see the uncertainty in her movements. People noticed her stepping forward. I saw the way their eyes flickered toward Victoria, then quickly away as if her blindness was something contagious, something uncomfortable that didn't belong in their perfect evening. A woman in a red dress whispered to her companion, and they both turned their backs. A group of young men in designer suits glanced at her, smirked, and continued their conversation about stock portfolios and yacht clubs. No one moved to help her. No one offered their hand. They just watched her struggle, this beautiful young woman trying to navigate a world that refused to see her as anything more than her disability. Something inside me broke. Maybe it was because I saw my own Isabella in Victoria's isolation, the way my daughter sometimes sat alone at school events while other kids played and laughed. Maybe it was because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be treated as less than human. Or maybe it was simply because my late wife Maria's voice echoed in my head, the way she always told me, "Gabriel, we must be kind. Kindness costs nothing, but it means everything." Whatever the reason, I found myself setting down my cleaning supplies and walking toward Victoria Sterling. The crowd parted as I moved through them, curiosity rippling across their faces. Who was this janitor, this nobody, walking toward the CEO's daughter? I could feel their judgment like heat on my skin, could hear the whispers starting like wildfire. But I kept walking until I stood directly in front of her. Victoria tilted her head, sensing my presence. Her face turned toward me, those beautiful eyes that couldn't see focusing somewhere near my shoulder. "Hello," she said softly, her voice uncertain but hopeful. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone in the room could hear it. My throat was dry, my hands were sweating, but I forced the words out. "May I have this dance?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The gasp that went through the ballroom was almost loud enough to drown out the orchestra. I heard someone drop their glass, the crystal shattering on the marble floor. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the violinists seemed to falter for a moment, their bows stuttering across the strings. A janitor, a nobody in a simple black uniform, had just asked Victoria Sterling to dance. The shock on their faces would have been funny if my heart wasn't trying to break through my ribcage. But Victoria didn't gasp. She didn't pull away or call for security. Instead, the smallest smile touched her lips and she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. "Yes, I would like that very much." She reached out her hand and I took it, feeling how delicate her fingers were in my calloused palm. I offered her my arm and she held it with a trust that made my chest tight. Together we walked onto that dance floor and I swear I could feel every single eye in the room burning into my back. The music swelled again, a waltz that Maria and I used to dance to in our tiny apartment when we were young and still believed the world might be kind to us. I placed my hand gently on Victoria's waist, took her other hand in mine and began to count softly. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. My voice was low, meant only for her, guiding her through the steps. She followed beautifully, her body moving with a natural grace that needed only direction, not correction. "You're very good at this," she said, and I could hear the surprise and delight in her voice. "Where did you learn to dance?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "My wife taught me," I said simply. "She said every man should know how to make a woman feel like she's floating." Victoria's smile widened, and we spun across that floor like we belonged there, like the differences between us didn't matter. The ballroom had gone completely silent except for the music. Even the whispers had stopped. I could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes watching us, judging us, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. A janitor and the CEO's blind daughter, dancing together as if we were equals, as if the invisible walls that separated our worlds had suddenly crumbled. Victoria laughed, a sound so pure and genuine that it cut through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. "I can't remember the last time I felt this free," she said, her cheeks flushed with happiness. "Everyone always treats me like I'm made of glass, like I might shatter if they breathe too hard. But you're different." I guided her through a gentle spin, counting softly to keep her oriented. "You're not glass," I told her. "You're just a person who deserves to dance like everyone else." As we moved across the floor, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Richard Sterling, Victoria's father and my employer, had finally noticed us. He stood at the edge of the crowd, his face carved from stone, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. His eyes, cold, calculating, powerful eyes that had built an empire, were fixed on me with an intensity that promised consequences. But he didn't move. Not yet. He just watched, his expression unreadable, while his daughter danced with a man he probably considered less than human. The song began to wind down, the final notes hanging in the air like a question waiting to be answered. As Victoria and I came to a stop, genuine applause erupted throughout the ballroom. Not polite, obligatory clapping but real appreciation. People had been moved by what they witnessed, even if many would never admit it out loud. Victoria squeezed my hand, her smile radiant. "Thank you, Gabriel," she whispered. "You have no idea what this meant to me." But before I could respond, Richard Sterling's voice cut through the applause like a knife through silk. "Gabriel Torres." His voice was cold, commanding, the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed without question. The applause died instantly. The crowd parted, creating a wide path between us and the CEO. My stomach dropped. The fact that he knew my full name, that he had spoken it aloud in front of all these people, sent a chill down my spine. Victoria's hand tightened on my arm, her smile fading. "Father?" she said uncertainly. Richard walked toward us with measured steps, each footfall echoing in the now silent ballroom. His tuxedo probably cost more than everything I owned combined, his cufflinks were platinum, his watch was worth more than my yearly salary. He was power personified and I was nothing. I gently released Victoria's hand and stepped back, lowering my eyes in the submissive gesture that men like me learned early. "Mr. Sterling, I apologize if I overstepped," I said quietly. Your daughter looked like she wanted to dance and I thought. You thought? Richard interrupted, his voice sharp as broken glass. You thought you had the right to make a spectacle of my daughter in front of senators, investors, and Miami's most influential families? You thought a janitor could just waltz up and treat her like some common girl? The words hit me like physical blows. Around us, guests shifted uncomfortably, some looking scandalized, others embarrassed for witnessing this public humiliation. But Victoria stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Father, stop. He didn't make a spectacle of me. He treated me like a human being, which is more than anyone else here did tonight. Richard's face darkened, but Victoria wasn't finished. Everyone in this room saw me standing alone. Everyone watched me trying to join the dancing. And every single person turned away. Except him. Her words hung in the air, an accusation that made the wealthy guests look at their expensive shoes. Richard's jaw clenched, and when he spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. You think you know what happened here tonight, Victoria? Richard's voice trembled with an emotion I couldn't identify, anger, fear, or something else entirely. You think this man is some kind of hero? He turned his blazing eyes on me and I saw something in them that made my blood freeze. It wasn't just anger. It was recognition. It was guilt. It was the look of a man confronting ghosts he thought he'd buried forever. Tell them, Gabriel. Tell them why I know your name. Tell them why I know exactly who you are and who your daughter is. My heart stopped. The room spun around me. What are you talking about? I whispered, my voice barely working. Richard's face contorted with emotions he could no longer contain. 20 years ago, before you married Maria Delgado, before you became a janitor scrubbing my floors, I made decisions that destroyed lives. Business decisions. Cold, calculated choices that maximized profit and minimized what I called acceptable losses. One of those acceptable losses was the Delgado family. The name hit me like a freight train. Maria's family. The family she never talked about, the pain she carried in silence until the day she died. Maria came to me, Richard continued, his voice cracking. She begged me to stop the foreclosure, to give her family more time, to show mercy. She was young, desperate, and she told me something I didn't want to hear. He paused, his hands shaking. She told me she was my daughter. The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps and cries. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. I staggered backward, the words hitting me like bullets. What? I choked out. That's impossible. Maria never, she never said. Richard's eyes glistened with tears he'd probably never shed in public before. I had an affair 25 years ago. A woman I thought meant nothing. When she got pregnant, I paid her to disappear, to never contact me again. I didn't know about Maria until she stood in my office, 17 years old and begging for help. His voice broke completely. And I turned her away. I had security throw her out of my building. I chose my reputation over my own daughter. Which means your daughter, Gabriel, your Isabella, is my granddaughter. We're family, bound by blood I tried to deny and sins I can never wash away. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria reached out blindly, and I took her hand without thinking, both of us anchored together in a storm of revelations. Richard Sterling, Miami's most powerful CEO, stood before us with tears streaming down his face, his empire of lies crumbling around him. The guests stood frozen, witnesses to a truth that would reshape everything. Isabella, Victoria whispered, her voice filled with wonder. I have a niece? I couldn't speak. My throat was closed, my mind racing through years of struggles, of Maria's silences, of secrets she took to her grave. All this time we'd been connected. All this time Richard Sterling wasn't just my employer, he was family. Victoria stepped forward and found her father's hand. Then tonight wasn't just about a dance, she said softly. It was about family finding each other in the most unexpected way. She turned toward me, her blind eyes somehow seeing more than anyone else in that room. Gabriel, bring Isabella to meet us. Please. Let's stop letting secrets destroy what's left of this family. I looked at Richard Sterling, the man who had let my wife suffer, who had denied his own blood. But I also saw a broken man who finally understood the cost of his choices. Maybe, just maybe, we could build something better from these ruins. For Isabella. For Victoria. For the family we never knew we had. Okay, I whispered. Let's try. This is my story of triumph. Do you think I handled it correctly? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your perspective. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Memorable Stories and Overcoming, where we share inspiring stories of triumph and justice every single day.